Saturday at
The
4
opinions
p.m.
expressed
in
on the
the
following
afternoon.
sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to the Ask the Expert Show with local celebrity host Steve-O. Sit back each week while Steve-O educates you with live in-studio experts, such as lawyers, doctors, home improvement, and financial experts in their field. Call in and have your questions answered each week at 888-565-1470. Now, here is Steve-O with today's expert in their field.
Hey, good afternoon. We're live today in studio. I love this guest. I mean, of all kind of guests I love, he's our criminal law guest. He's with us every month. We're here on 95.3 and 1470 AM. This is the show's called Ask the Experts, and we bring you experts every week. Our first guest is Antonio Valiente, and he just gave me a show idea today. And first of all, welcome. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Steve. Good to see you.
You're coming from Miami.
What's that? Well, today I was actually in our Fort Lauderdale office all day, so,
So
shorter.
but you practice in Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach.
Yep, that's correct.
And all you do is just strictly criminal law.
Criminal and, well, as I think we'll touch on today, a little bit of family in that where there's overlap between criminal and family law.
It's amazing when you talk to an attorney, and you, especially when it comes to domestic violence, you say, is this a criminal case or is this a family case?
Right.
But you just shared a story with me. I'm going to share a story with you because let me tell you something. A lot of people are single, divorced, doing online dating, or you meet somebody. And I think today is going to be how careful you really need to be. And I actually want to start off, and I think I've told you this story. My son, great kid, good kid, responsible kid.
Takes after his father.
Yeah, thank you, buddy. You got free show for that. But he met a woman online. And he was, at the time, he was 27, and met her online, and they hooked up. That's normal. Well, they really hooked up. They actually went to her house.
Okay.
And she invited him back the next night. So I guess it was good. They went back, it was a very happy ending, if you know what I mean. 2 nights later, the police come knocking on his door. He was being arrested for rape. This girl grew a conscience, and turned out, though her bio said she was 22, she was really 17.
Ooh.
So, but who would think, who asked someone for an ID ever?
Well, to take it one step further, even if he had asked for an ID and she showed him a fake ID,
Exactly.
it wouldn't matter.
That's right. I didn't think of that.
I mean, it wouldn't matter. It's what they call a strict liability crime, where even if you didn't know you were committing, statutory rape.
Okay.
It's
so, but if the girl invites him back,
she could invite him back. She could show him a fake ID, fake passport.
So Mom got real mad, and she actually herself went to the prosecutor. He's an elected official. So what the community says about him, I guess, was really important. The law is you got to get ID, period. And you just told me something I didn't even think of. Because the first thing I said to my son is, go get her picture, go get her bio showing she's 22 years old. It didn't matter.
Right.
And I thought it was just a Texas law. I heard it's for the whole United States.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably...
My son got 10 years probation.
Oh.
The only thing he didn't have to do is register as a sex offender.
Which is a huge deal.
But he could not be around a school or anywhere there were kids at. Now, he was single at the time. Then he gets married 4 years later. They have a baby. Guess what he can't do? He can't take his baby to a park with all the other kids. He can't even go to the fair.
Was that the agreement that they came to?
Yeah,
so
that was
while he's on probation.
Yeah. And
So he's
first
on-
it's a felony.
He's on sex offender probation.
Yes.
All right.
The only thing is he
Without
didn't
registering.
have to. Yes. But it ruined his life, basically.
Oh, absolutely.
For something, I got to tell you, I did online dating. I never asked a woman for her ID, but you just brought up something. What if the ID's fake?
Yeah, exactly.
But you've got to be so careful. And then you're telling me stories Now, this was a boyfriend and girlfriend. Not going to give out any names, but look what this did to his life.
All right.
And listen, we never know if the person's crazy. They might seem so normal, and I'm sure as a male, there's been a lot of men who've met that crazy. But now you're talking about you could go to jail,
absolutely,
prison. I mean, you've really got to be careful out there. You just can't hook up with just anybody. So what would you suggest then if someone's meeting somebody new? Even if they look like they're in their late 20s. You know, some of these young girls can really make themselves look a lot older.
I think you just got to probably use your best judgment and, you know, as mature acting and looking as, you know, a 15-year-old girl might be, a 17-year-old girl. You know, if she says she's 25, 30, I mean, you know, there's no... You should be able to tell by... I mean, and I don't mean you have to grill them with questions,
right,
you know, and like they would at, like, the door of a club, you know, what year did you graduate high school, you know, things like that, and make her answer real fast. Right. But you definitely want to... But I think it's just probably... It's something that's going to... I imagine personally that it would come up. Like, just in talking to somebody, I mean, you would just know if something's off.
Listen,
right? Like, you know, this girl, she looks like she's definitely, she must be over 18. However, you know, she
the
doesn't
Baldwin
remember.
Brothers, right? I saw one of the Baldwin brothers came to my church, and he was with a lady that I thought she was 30, which would have been still very young for him. It turned out it was his 15-year-old daughter. So, I mean, some of these girls can really make themselves... But the point is I'm trying to make is we're going to talk about domestic violence today. Yeah. The point is you've got to be, especially if you're doing this online dating and going out to bars to meet people. A friend of mine actually has a dating service, and they really do their due diligence. I mean, they really do. But I guess I just want to bring this up because, I mean, it doesn't matter what age you are. You're out there in the bars and you're online.
I mean, I think you want to just ask, you know, get to know as much about this person before you are going to meet them, you know, till you can make a good assessment for yourself. And not just about their age, but about anything else. I think for girls as well as for guys, you know, there's a lot of people out there, guys and girls, that are married and that are doing online dating and pretending, you know, not to be.
Yeah, look at that. That's I forgot the name of it, where married men could actually go online.
Well, that was a service that was tailored towards towards married men. But no, I mean just on, you know, a regular dating app where, I mean, there's no way to verify what your marital status other than what you check off on the. So, well, and presumably, if you're married, you wouldn't be on a dating app.
Is there a way that somebody, and maybe it's an app, or I mean, let's say you've just met somebody, and look, this guy yesterday who did the shooting, this guy had a domestic violence background. Now, he had never been, I guess, committed, but convicted. But he had a background of it. I don't know how he got off, but you just never know.
Absolutely.
Is there a way, whether it's a male or female, that you can, if you meet someone, you kind of like them and you'd like to maybe see them again, is there a way to check the person out?
You know, you'll need some basic information about them, you know, like their correct first and last name. I mean, at least the date of birth or like a date range. And I mean, I don't know about apps. I'm sure there are.
Well, in Texas, they actually have a service. You put the person's name, they can tell you if they've ever been arrested. And usually they'll give you the picture, too, if they've been arrested. But I didn't know if there was anything like that here in Florida.
Well, as far as arrests go, yeah. I mean, absolutely, because there's tons of... everything's in Florida. You know, we have our sunshine laws. Everything's a public record. You know, so mugshots, arrest records, you know, even the reports from any arrests are all going to be public record, and you can... Some of it you can access directly online. Some of it you have to do a public record request, but you will get it without having to. I mean, I know with like police reports at Miami-Dade, they'll charge you 10 cents a page for copies. But, I mean, that's it. You can get any police report. Yeah. again, along with just kind of getting to know the person before you ever agree to meet them or exchange phone number. Yeah, I mean, I would think at the very least you'd want to Google this person.
Right.
I mean, just at the very least.
Hope they gave you the right name.
What's that? Yeah. And
So, just curious, because you do domestic violence cases.
we do.
Are there females? I mean, are there males who've been involved with domestic violence where it's the female hitting on them?
Yeah. I would say it's not as common, but
Okay.
it definitely happens. I think what we see a lot nowadays are people who, when you have the male is the victim, it'll be a situation where maybe in the past there has been, the wife or girlfriend has called the police before, and so the man knows how the system works. Usually in most situations, when police are called out to a home or a situation where there's supposed, alleged domestic violence, they have to make an arrest, no matter what. For them to not make an arrest, they have to make a determination, that there's whatever this person is telling them, that they have a reason to believe that what he or she is telling me is not true. I mean, a guy calls the police and says, my girlfriend beat the crap out of me, she punched me over and over in the face. It just happened 20 minutes ago, and you don't have a single mark on your face.
What do you do in that case?
Well, in a case like that, a cop has enough to be like,
person's word against the other, right?
yeah.
So what?
Well, a lot of times it's only one person's word because the other person will leave once they hear that the police are being called.
Right.
But, it
If
is
a
enough.
person leaves and there's domestic violence, can they be arrested at a later date?
Yeah,
They can't.
absolutely.
So just because they left doesn't get them out of trouble.
No, I mean, it might get them from having to be arrested on scene and take a ride to the police station, and maybe you can, arrange a surrender the next day with an attorney or something like that, or you walk in, you already have your bondsman ready to go.
If you have a criminal law question that you'd like to ask Attorney Antonio Valiente, 888-565-1470. Give us a call. Again, it's 888-565-1470. You can actually watch the show. Is the show up on your website yet?
It should be.
Okay, good. Okay. So your website is www.valientelaw.com. That's V as in Victor, ALIENTE law.com. You can actually watch this show, Robert, or you can, when you get home from work today and you want to watch the show, go back and watch the show. We've always got great information on here. We're going to go to break. When we come back, I want to hear what domestic violence injunction is, because I've never heard that before. Mm-hmm. And maybe you can give some pointers out there, because some of these women stay probably longer than they should. And maybe there's some places you might know that they can contact, especially for someone who's been through domestic violence. We'll be right back.
Attorney Antonio Valiente has been chosen as the expert in criminal law by the Ask the Experts radio show. He has extensive experience successfully trying cases ranging from traffic misdemeanors to first-degree murder. Attorney Valiente has successfully argued motions to suppress, stand your ground, motions for new trials, and for judgment of acquittal, and defended clients in pretrial detention and probation violation hearings. Making sure you are represented by the most experienced and competent attorney in your criminal case you may have is essential. Attorney Antonio Valiente emphasizes to all his clients that while he is their attorney, he will guide them through the entire legal process and work together as a team. It is very important that your attorney is available to you to answer any questions you have. Attorney Antonio Valiente handles DUI cases, drug crimes, theft crimes, sex crimes, juvenile crimes, violent crimes, and gun weapons-related crimes. If you get arrested, you need Attorney Valiente on your side. You can contact him at 786-361-6887. That's 786-361-6887. Or go to Attorney Antonio Valiente at valientelaw.com. Attorney Valiente practices in Palm Beach County, Broward County, and Dade County.
We're back here. This is the Ask the Experts radio show. I'm Steve O, and I'm here with Attorney Antonio Valiente. His office is in Miami, but he practices criminal law in both Broward and Palm Beach. And we've been doing the show now for about, this is our 5th month. I'm telling you, I've been doing this for 8 years, and I just get a feel for people. And I'm so glad that we have you as part of the show, because you
Thanks
know
for
what?
having
You
me.
make it. I understand what you're saying. You don't talk over people's heads. And, sometimes you sit down with an attorney and you're going, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
They start throwing, the 11 and 14-letter words. But, no, it's so easy
A lot of
to
Latin
understand.
terms.
Like, you feel like one of us. It's like I'm sitting down with a buddy who just happens to be a lawyer, and the way you explain things, listen, I hope I never need a criminal attorney, but if I do, you are the man. So these domestic violence cases, some of these pictures I've seen are like really bad. I mean, it's like, there's no way that the other person's going to win when they've got pictures to show. But, you never know what started all this, too. And does that come out in court?
Yeah, no, it will. And a lot of people, I think a lot of defense attorneys in particular, like domestic violence cases, because every domestic violence case, just by its very nature of being that domestic in nature, that there's going to be some motive. I mean,
Right.
There's going to be some bias or motive on the part of the other party, right? I mean, sometimes it's, people will, and not all the time, of course, there's obviously tons of legitimate victims of domestic violence, and it's not to belittle any of them, but the system is also abused quite a bit, and people want to get divorced, for example, and maybe the wife or husband is worried that the other one is going to have some kind of advantage over them, and so they'll
How many
they'll
times
make
is
up
alcohol? How much of the cases you've done is alcohol involved or drugs? When you do a domestic violence case, does that usually have anything to do with it?
I think the presence of drugs or alcohol certainly increases the likelihood, of somebody using poor judgment and, committing a crime possibly, or using poor judgment and calling the police when maybe nothing has happened, just because you're like, you know what, I'm going to get divorced, and my husband's always taking care of me and supported me, and I know that he's going to hire an awesome attorney. I'm not going to be able to do anything. I'm going to lose the kids. And so
Sometimes they don't say anything.
So they'll call the police and perhaps, maybe exaggerate what happened during like a heated argument, and that way, they think it gives them a leg up when they have their divorce case, for example.
Well, I want to tell people a little bit about you also. What kind of cases do you mostly handle?
Well, I'd say
I know you do everything.
Yeah, we
when it
do
comes-
everything, and it's probably split, I'd say, between maybe half the cases we have are serious felonies that we have, armed robberies, attempted murders, etc., and then the other half would be, your cocaine possession, domestic violence cases, DUIs,
A lot of drug cases.
grand theft, retail thefts, things like that come up a lot. I mean, those are just the most.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you today, I don't know if you're following this case or not, but we actually had 2 people email us when you were coming on, and I wanted to say for the second half, there's a trial going on in Palm Beach for the lady who said she was set up by the Boynton Beach police. She had hired someone to kill her husband, and it was all set up. People want to know, this is going to be the 3rd trial. They want to know.
It's a retrial?
Yes.
So, like, hung juries before?
Well,
or?
the first one, she was actually sentenced,
Okay.
prison. She got a retrial the second time because they're saying they were set up by the Boynton police to show on the show Cops. This is the 3rd one, but when you have all this evidence, whether it was showed on Cops or not, it seems like the courts are really giving her a lot of different chances.
Well, I imagine that the trial court is probably not very happy about all the chances that she's been getting.
Okay.
Right. I mean, when she was sentenced the first time, she was obviously convicted, and an appellate court would have had to have found that there was some kind of error committed by during the trial, to reverse it, send it back for a new trial, and then that's when I guess the publicity
She
of the
paid
cops.
the money? this was all being filmed, and it was for cops, but they're saying that this was all done to showboat. But the bottom line is she still paid an undercover officer to to kill her husband.
Yeah.
And you should have seen her when her husband walked in at the police station that she wasn't dead. I mean, it's one of those no tears crying at all.
Right.
Does that make sense to you at all? Or just it depends on the judge?
Well, again, it's not the judge that's handling the trial, that's making, that's giving her all these new trials, right? I mean, it's either an appellate court, or if the judge does, say, declare a mistrial, which happens sometimes when, let's say, the jury just, they can't agree. I mean, a verdict has to be of guilty or not guilty, has to be unanimous. If they're deadlocked and the judge, tells them, look, keep trying a little bit more, they come back day after day. I mean, right now with like the Bill Cosby trial,
yes,
they just
they're having a hard time making a decision.
I think they're on day 3 or 4 of deliberations, and they told the judge that they're deadlocked, and the judge asked them to keep trying, but it's going to get to a point where they're going to just finally either tell.
Does it have to be 100%?
It has to be unanimous.
Okay.
Yeah, all the jurors.
It's considered deadlock.
Yes, I mean it could be depending on state, federal, what jurisdiction you're on. Sometimes there's 12 jurors, sometimes there's not. In Florida, for most felonies, you only have 6 jurors and maybe an alternate, but it has to be all 6. The 6 jurors, or if if it's a capital case or you're in the federal system where you have 12 jurors, then yes, it has to be unanimous. All the jurors have to just, be on board.
Tell everybody how to reach you, because I'm telling I'm going to tell people right now what you should do, because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, tomorrow you could be arrested, something you didn't even do, but you're arrested, and you don't have a criminal attorney. I would think you don't want to get someone off the wall at the jail.
No, or a billboard.
Yeah, billboard. So how do they reach you?
So we have 2 numbers. Our for Broward and Palm Beach, it's 954-634-2764. And our Dade County office is 786-361-6887. And we're,
your website, you've got a great website.
Got our website, yep. It's valientelaw.com. Like you said, V as in Victor, ALIENTE law.com. And they can call, email. There's a form on the website where they can, contact us 24/7. There'll always be, someone to answer the phone. If they don't answer, they'll get a call back shortly thereafter. Weekdays, weekends.
I've never had a problem getting a call back from you, and that's important too, especially if you're in jail.
Absolutely no, and we also do both those phone numbers do accept phone calls from any any Florida facility. It will collect calls.
Because sometimes
Florida and federal.
Do you do anything out of this area at all within the state of Florida?
Yeah, we've had some cases in North Florida, some in like Brevard County, Martin County.
Okay.
But it's not, typically it's someone who we've already represented maybe down here that will take their case when they get in trouble up there. Obviously, there's travel costs involved in that, so a lot of times. Why
does it seem that people are more violent now than ever before?
I don't know.
Do you
feel like not a day goes by that we're not getting some alert that somewhere there wasn't some shooting?
I know.
I don't know if it's
and
happening
more.
Have you
noticed that in your business that the crimes that you're getting are a lot more violent? And even with the drug cases, we're hearing, what's this drug out now that people are dying from?
Fentanyl.
God. There's a drug out there that they're actually...
It's like 10 times stronger than Oxycontin.
The governors are all getting involved with it because, from what I understand, heroin has just gotten just crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely...
So, do you see drug cases now going up more?
I think
violent crimes going up more?
I think what we're seeing a lot more of, and especially now with the new administration, is, the new administration and the new Attorney General, is they're back to, in not just violent crimes and gun crimes, but also in lower level drug crimes. In the federal system, they are insisting that the United States, the assistant U.S. attorneys always charge the absolute most serious crime that they can.
So that's just changed recently.
In the last couple
With
of
the new
months.
administration.
Yeah. I mean, and more important, well, maybe more significantly, also always charge the mandatory minimum, which is discretionary for, for the U.S. attorneys or for the prosecutors to charge it or not, but now, Sessions has sent a memo out saying, in all cases, we want to charge the absolute most serious crime, and drug cases, when there's a mandatory minimum that's available, go after it, which is the exact opposite as when Eric Holder was the Attorney General, and he actually sent out a memo to all the U.S. attorneys saying the assistant U.S. attorney saying the exact opposite, which was to, and especially lower level drug offenses, non-violent offenses, is you don't need to charge a minimum mandatory. I have a federal case now where someone coming into the country was picked up at MIA with a suitcase with a false bottom and about 1.5 kilos of cocaine, and
you got a lot of new potential clients out there with all the people that Obama let out. I mean, we're already hearing that a lot of these people that he let out are back to...
Well, it wasn't so much that he let out as much as it was, so because of that amount, in this case, that I was just saying, 1.5 kilos of cocaine, there's a 5-year mandatory minimum. A year ago, they probably wouldn't be asking for that 5-year mandatory minimum.
Okay.
Now it is being charged, and they do want it.
Okay.
So that's, it's not to say that people are, were before being, just let out, but they definitely were more, the sentences weren't quite as long, quite as draconian as, as they can be.
Well, I'm going to ask you this final question. Do you work with your clients on any kind of a sliding scale at all as to... some people don't have as much money as other people have.
We always work with our clients. We tell our clients, especially if it's a bigger case, et cetera, you're talking about a considerable amount of money that most people can't just say, okay,
right.
Here you go. Here it is, cash, check, credit card. So we actually have financing options available.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, where, people can get like 6 months, no interest financing, and, paying back in 3 or 5 years.
You never know. So, listen, boy, it's a fast 30 minutes. Give everybody your phone number and your website again.
Yep. It's 786-361-6887 if you're in Dade County, and in Broward or West Palm, 954-634-2764.
Beautiful. And, we haven't told many people this, but Renee and I, we have another show that's a morning show. It's going to be in Miami, 7 to 10 every morning, and we're going to have you on the show. We're going to talk about DWI, DUI, because you're the perfect person to bring on for the show.
Appreciate that. Look forward to
having you on. You'll be back with us next week, and we're going to go to break. And we come back, we've got a new show, employment law show, that we're going to be introducing today. So thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
We'll see you.
Appreciate it, Steve.
Next month.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back.
Attorney Antonio Valle.
And we are back. For about the last 8 months, we get so many calls from listeners, emails, telling us what kind of show they'd like. And I'm going to tell you, I have wanted to have an employment law show for about probably the last year. And we finally found one of the top, he can't say this, I can, because I'm a layman. We found one of the top employment attorneys. And if you own a business, you really want to listen to today's show. So we have Mark Berkowitz with us. He's an attorney here. He does employment law. Hey, welcome to your first show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
It's tell everybody about yourself and about your firm.
Well, I've been a solo practitioner in Fort Lauderdale for the last 22 years, practicing mainly employment law for individuals and for small businesses.
And tell me, do you have any other areas of law that you practice?
Pretty much exclusively employment law. It covers a wide range of topics, from wrongful discharge and retaliation to making employee handbooks and employment contracts to pensions and health and welfare benefit plans. So it's a very wide open, spread out type of practice.
You know, this handbook you talked about, I've learned from one of our other shows, that's really important, and a lot of businesses don't even have a handbook.
Right. It's very important for a small business to take preventative measures against possible claims, and that's what a handbook can do. I think a lot of small businesses don't really know the benefits of having a handbook, and that's why they don't have them when they really should.
There's a lot of people opening up their own businesses now. So when somebody comes to you, they're telling you they're going to start their own business, maybe 5 to 8 employees, what are some of the things you tell them in the beginning?
Well, one of the big pitfalls in South Florida is overtime compensation. In fact, South Florida has 40% of all overtime cases in the country are here in South Florida.
Wow.
So you want to be very careful if these employees are working more than 40 hours per week and they're not exempt from the law. You want to make sure that you're in compliance and that you're paying them what you're supposed to. The other thing is that a small business with 5 employees or more could be subject to discrimination lawsuits.
Why is that?
Well, there are local ordinances that require employers not to discriminate on the basis of any protected class, such as race, gender, national origin, disability, religion, and so forth. Under state law, the minimum jurisdictional requirement for the number of employees is 15. So if you have a business with at least 5 employees in Broward County, an employee handbook is certainly something that you need to take a look at.
Yeah, I would think so. Can an employee be fired for any reason?
Yes. Generally in Florida, we are an employee at will state, which means that if you don't have an employment contract, you can be terminated at will, either with or without cause. It dates back to the old days when we were mainly a farming community, and it really hasn't changed since then.
So your boss could fire you for any reason at all?
Correct. If you have no employment contract that sets forth a definite time as to the period of employment, unfortunately, your boss could fire you because you're wearing a blue shirt one day. It doesn't really matter.
Well, can you tell everybody, because this comes up a lot, independent contractor. Now, if you're an independent contractor, do all the same rules apply, whether if you were an employee versus an independent contractor?
Well, the first question is, what is an independent contractor, and how do you classify an independent contractor as opposed to an employee? And that's a very complicated question. In fact, the IRS
Would a server be an independent, someone who serves at a restaurant?
Well, most likely not. An independent contractor has to be responsible for their own tools, for their own hours, not being supervised at all by the employer. So there's a multifaceted group of tests that the IRS uses to determine whether or not one is an employee or an independent contractor. You just can't label someone as a matter of a convenience as an independent contractor.
And what about paying federal taxes? Because a lot of independent contractors say that, I guess they tell their boss that they will pay their taxes, and they sign something, don't they?
Well, if that's not correct, if they're not actually independent contractors, there could be some implications there for the IRS. So that's something that the employee and the employer don't want to do that.
So they're talking still, like in a lot of states, there is talking about raising minimum wages. And I guess the magic number nowadays is $15 an hour. Do you see that happening here in Florida?
Well, Florida's minimum wage is higher than the federal minimum wage already.
But isn't Florida tough because during the season, from what I understand, a lot of people bring people in from other countries. Is that right? Have you heard that?
You mean as employees?
As employees.
Well, that's getting into immigration law. That's getting into a different area.
Okay, so as an employment attorney, do you instruct your clients as to when you're bringing in people from other countries to work for you?
Well,
do you try to discourage that?
I would probably refer them to an immigration lawyer
Okay.
that has more expertise in that.
Okay, that's fair enough. What's the when people come? I'm talking a business owner now, not an employee. What's the biggest thing that employers come to you to represent them on?
Primarily, employers get complaints of discrimination that employees file, and they file complaints of discrimination with the agencies that have jurisdiction to investigate allegations of discrimination. So mainly it's the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. If an employer gets a charge filed, they need to file a response in opposition to the charge that has been filed by the employee.
And there's a lot of different types of discriminations, aren't there?
Yes, as I think I mentioned before, there's discrimination based on what the law calls a suspect class, which is race, gender, age, national origin, disability. Those are the primary classifications.
Do you mostly represent the employer, or do you also represent employees?
Primarily employees, but I do think that there's a niche market for smaller employers for representation. I think that the smaller employers of anywhere between 10 to 50 employees are not represented, and they don't know what they don't know, which is very dangerous for them.
And what about health care? What is the actual law when it comes to health care? If you have all part-time help, do you have to provide health care?
Well, under the Affordable Care Act, if you have at least 50 employees, then there is a requirement.
So it's based on the number of employees, not if they're part-time or
Correct.
full-time.
Right.
Okay. So if you have over 50 employees, you have to provide health care.
Under the Affordable Care Act.
Okay.
Yes. Mhm.
Well, we'll see if that's going to change at all with the new administration. I would think with all the things that can go wrong legally with a business, that when you sit down with someone for the first time to go, whether it's sex discrimination or any kind of harassment, I would think it would take at least a couple hours to sit down with a new business on all the things they have to be careful of.
Yes, they really should have a handbook that addresses all these issues, from discrimination to medical leave to pregnancy leave.
Do you put this together for them?
Yes.
Okay.
And policies on discipline, how to discipline an employee, when to discipline an employee, and so forth.
Are there different processes when it comes to discrimination, whether it's a federal employee or a state employee? When you come in and you have to advise them, does it matter if they're federal or state?
Well, federal employees are kind of a different animal because they have their own legal system. A federal employee has to file a complaint of discrimination within 45 days of being notified of the act of discrimination. And ultimately, they get a hearing before an administrative law judge who works for the Equal Employment and Opportunity Commission. That's an entirely different set of rules than a state employee. Some state employees are employees at will and don't have very much in terms of rights. Other state employees are career service employees, and they have certain protections before the Public Employees Relations Commission, which is an administrative agency that protects employees to a certain extent under state law.
Is it allowed? Well, I'm in the radio business, and a lot of salespeople in the radio business are told that if they get fired, they're not allowed to work in the industry in that area. Is that legal to do?
Well, I think you're referring to a non-compete,
Like a non-compete, yes.
non-competition agreement, and under certain circumstances, non-competition agreements are enforceable in the state of Florida. Typically,
Would you sign one? Would you have your client sign a non-compete?
well, it depends what the terms of the non-compete was. Non-competes generally are enforceable if the employer can prove what the law calls a legitimate business interest, and that would include customer lists, confidential information, proprietary information of the employer, those types of issues. So I think the misconception in non-competes, it's not supposed to prevent people from working. It's supposed to prevent unfair competition. In other words, an employee taking certain knowledge that he or she has gained from employee A and then going to employee B and undermining the first employer in the marketplace. So that's really the theory of
So I think in the radio
non-competes.
business, it's about you. If you work in Palm Beach County, you are not, if you get fired or you quit, you are not allowed to go sell radio. Not anything else, just you're not allowed to go sell radio advertising in Palm Beach County. That's how it works in the radio business.
Right.
So if someone asked you, should I sign a non-compete or should I just go look for a different job?
Well, signing a non-compete may be a condition of employment. You may have no choice. Non-competes are enforceable if the area restriction is reasonable, and certainly one or two counties, I think, would be reasonable.
Okay. Let's give everybody your phone number and your website address.
Okay, my phone number in Broward is 954-527-0570. The website address is www.markjberkowitz.com.
And I think something really good to know is we have a lot of listeners in the New York area who come down here during the season. You could handle, if they have a business down here, you can handle, even though they live in New York, you can also still represent them.
Yes, if the issues are here in Florida, yes.
Exactly. Okay, we're going to go to break. We're here with Mark. And when we come back, I've got so many questions here for you. And I'm so glad you're on. This is going to be a great show. It touches everybody in some way. We'll be right back with more.
Fort Lauderdale labor and employment law attorney Mark J. Berkowitz, PA, specializes in labor and employment law legal issues, such as wrongful discharge, retaliation, sexual harassment, overtime compensation, the application of non-competition and employment agreements, as well as the denial of health care, disability, and/or pension benefits. If you have lost your job or believe you have been denied a promotion, you may have a legal remedy. If those personnel decisions were based upon discriminatory reasons, including race, gender, national origin, disability, age, or religious discrimination, or if those personnel decisions came about due to the filing of a complaint of discrimination. With the assistance of the law firm of Mark J. Berkowitz, PA in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, you can obtain the legal assistance you need in the wide and diverse subject area of labor and employment law. You will be professionally counseled on your rights as an employee in the workplace, and you will be provided with legal as well as practical options tailored to meet your needs in that specific situation. Call attorney Mark J. Berkowitz today for an appointment at 954-527-0570. That's 954-527-0570.
And we're back. This is our first employment law attorney, our employment law show here on the Ask the Expert Show. If you have a question for Mark, our phone number here is 888-565-1470. We're on 95.3 FM, and we're also on 1470 AM. And like I said, if you have a question for Mark, give us a call right now at 888-565-1470, especially if you're a business owner, because I would think as a business owner, there is so much to know when you run a company. And I think that there's so many people. My son just opened up his own retail business. He's got 10 people working for them. And he knows nothing. He knows how to sell, but he knows nothing about running a business. And I think that every business should at least sit down with you, and because there's so many things that people just don't know. What is the biggest, when you sit down with a company owner, what's the biggest thing that people just don't realize that they have to do in a business?
Well, people need to know how to manage their workforce. If they're going to terminate someone, they have to have a documented file with legitimate reasons for the termination. Oftentimes, that goes a long way towards preventing claims or possible lawsuits.
The term whistleblower. Now, we hear that a lot. Explain what a whistleblower actually is.
Well, under Florida law, a whistleblower is someone who makes a complaint either to the employer or to an investigative agency that what the employer is telling him to do is against the law. And oftentimes, employees who report violations of the law are then subjected to retaliation. They may be fired, they may be demoted, but that is a legal violation, and that's where employers get into trouble.
Where does a whistleblower go to? I mean, they don't go to the head of the company, do they?
Well,
especially if the head of the company is the one who's asking them to do something illegal.
Well, they can go to, if they're in the government, they can go to the Inspector General's office, or they can go to an investigative agency such as the Department of Labor or the Occupational Health Administration to file a complaint. So those outlets are available for making whistleblower complaints.
Let's go into arbitration agreements. Tell everybody what an arbitration agreement is.
Oftentimes, when an employee is hired, they're asked to sign an agreement whereby any complaints that the employee may have about the business, whether it's for discrimination or overtime or those types of issues, have to be heard by a private arbitrator rather than going into court. So you're really the employee is waiving his right to court in a jury trial by signing this arbitration agreement. And the disadvantage is that you're not going to have your case heard by a jury. It's going to be heard by a privately paid and selected arbitrator.
So you don't have any representation when you go in there, is that right?
Well, you can have representation, sure, but the parties usually select an arbitrator to hear the case. So it's out of the court system and into a private system of adjudication.
Well, I'm going to throw a big topic out there, sexual orientation. Tell me what a owner of a company is responsible for when it comes to sexual orientation.
Well, interestingly enough, we do have some ordinances in South Florida that protect employees on the basis of sexual orientation. There is an ordinance in Broward County, there's one in Palm Beach, and there's also one in Dade. But there is no protection on the basis of sexual orientation, either under state law or federal law. So unless there is a local ordinance, unfortunately, there isn't any protection for sexual orientation discrimination.
Okay. Now, you practice in Dade,
Yes.
Broward, and Palm Beach.
Correct.
Do you practice in any other areas of Florida?
I have taken cases in Orlando, sometimes out of state if it's an important case, but mainly in the 3 counties.
Okay, because this is a 50,000-watt station, and it really gets out there. So we've actually gotten emails from Orlando, people who've listened to the show. I want to get back to overtime. I have some friends of mine who work for Publix, and I don't really understand overtime. So to explain a little bit about, if someone works to me 48 hours, that's overtime.
Well, it depends upon what kind of employee they are. If they're a management type employee or if they're an administrative employee.
So salaried.
Right, but they're exempt if they have management or administrative duties. Generally, employees that receive overtime are employees that perform job functions that don't require any independent discretion or managerial or administrative functions, such as clerks or cashiers, those types of positions.
Okay.
A lot of people get confused that even if you pay an employee who is entitled to overtime, if that employee is paid a salary, that's not really the test. The test is really what type of job function does that employee perform, and that determines whether or not they're exempt from the overtime law.
Are there any laws in the books as regards to having to work on Christmas or Thanksgiving, certain holidays?
Well, generally, employers will give employees off on those holidays.
It's seen retail now. It seems more than ever. Everybody's open now.
Right. Well, you could claim a religious exemption for a particular holiday if that would work, if that would fall into the reason for the request.
Can an employer fire you if you refuse to work on, say, a Christmas or a Thanksgiving if they're open?
Well, if you're a religious person and you want to take off Christmas, that could raise an issue of religious discrimination.
See, I like to take off for Hanukkah, off 8 days. That's best for me. What about, this is something I hear all the time, sexual harassment. Do you find that, is that prevalent in the working force a lot now with sexual harassment? Because I hear that all the time.
Yeah, it still is fairly prevalent, and there are really two types of sexual harassment. The first is offensive conduct in the workplace, jokes, gestures, and generally under the law, it has to be pretty severe and pervasive to constitute sexual harassment. The other type of harassment is what the law calls quid pro quo, which means job benefits in return for sexual favors. So those are the two types of harassment. We still do see a lot of hostile work environment sexual harassment because the conduct becomes pervasive. The other thing about sexual harassment that often occurs is if an employee makes a complaint about a hostile work environment that's pervasive with this type of conduct, unfortunately, the employee may be subjected to retaliation if that employee makes a complaint, and that comes up very often, unfortunately.
We see that a lot on the national basis. Some I don't understand because it's usually one person's word against the other. So I've never understood how. Now, Roger Ailes, someone like that, may he rest in peace, he had a lot of problems, and so did Bill O'Reilly. Is it based on if you've had other complaints? What if you just have one complaint against you? Can you get rid of an employee for just one complaint? Or do you have to see a trend going?
Well, no, one complaint could be actionable. You have to be able to show as the employee that you made the complaint, that's the protected activity, and you have to show there's been some kind of adverse job action. They demoted the person, they terminated the person, they gave the person horrible job duties, and then you have to show that there was some relationship or some causal connection between the complaint and the adverse action. So if that just happened on one occasion, that would be enough to make out a case of retaliation.
So if you have to let somebody go, is there unemployment compensation to them? Do you have to pay? Do you have to give them 2 weeks' pay if you let someone go?
Typically, it's a good idea, I think.
Is this in the handbook?
That's something that should be in the handbook. But we do have a system of unemployment compensation here in Florida. Employees who lose their jobs are eligible for unemployment compensation, provided that they don't commit any misconduct connected with the work. In other words, if the employer fires the employee because the employee is just not doing a good job, the employee is doing his or her best, but it's just not working out, that employee would most likely be eligible for unemployment benefits. If, on the other hand, the employee is insubordinate or is acting against the best interests of the employer, that would probably be enough to show misconduct and deny the employee unemployment benefit.
Well, I know this is amazing, but this has been the fastest 30 minutes. There is, for someone not to hire a person like yourself, an employment attorney, especially with a new business, with all there is to know. We just went through 30 minutes, and there's so much that they need to know. Give everybody your phone number again.
My phone number in Broward is 954-527-0570 and toll-free 877-991-7117.
And your website?
My website is mark, middle initial J, Berkowitz.com.
Listen, I love that we have you on our show. Mark will be back with us again next month, and we'll be back again next week with more Ask the Experts. Thanks again, Mark.
Okay, thank you.
See you next week.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Experts show. Tune in while some of the